Aye.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. All right, I hope you guys were paying attention in the first half of class because there will be a oral quiz.
Yeah, there's going to be a quiz on oralism. Wait a minute.
We can't say that when we're talking about prisons, dude.
Yeah, that does seem. You're gonna suck on whatever Rooster gives you to suck on. He says, "I'll just stick a knife. You can stick a knife in my head, and then I bite down." And that's Shawshank Redemption. It's a wonderful movie.
It is a great movie. One of the best. Okay, so we're in the second part of the prison industrial complex. I don't have jack shit to say right now, and I'm going to grab another beer, so I'm going to let Darren talk.
So there was a point that Brian made at the beginning, and the suggestion was that, when we talked about, military appropriations, and we're talking about this other aspect of power as expressed by the state in a different sort of way. It's important that we see them all in the same context. It's like different, different sides of the same coin. You don't just look at it simply. You have to look and see how those are connected. But one of the things that I referred to earlier on is ALEC. That's the American Legislative Exchange Council. And William Robinson does a good job in this paragraph, sort of like drawing some lines together to see how these are connecting, how it connects to transnational capital, and how it connects to overall the construction of certain policies that connect to jails, whether it be public or private. But here you go. Okay. So the activities of the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, expose the interconnections between corporate interests, the state, militarization and policing, and anti-immigrant and other neo-fascist tendencies in civil society. ALEC brings together state and federally elected officials and law enforcement and criminal justice system representatives with some 200 of the most powerful transnational corporations, among them AT&T, Coca-Cola, ExxonMobil, Pfizer, Kraft Foods, Walmart, Bank of America, Microsoft, Nestle, AstraZeneca, Dow Chemicals, Sony, and of course Koch Industries. This latter being the biggest ALEC funders. So that's one of them down. We just need to get rid of that other one.
That's a huge fucking surprise.
ALEC develops legislative initiatives that advance the transnational corporate agenda, hammering out in its gatherings draft criminal justice, anti-union, tax reform, financial and environmental deregulation, and related bills that are then tabled by state and local elected officials associated with ALEC. Okay, so specifically with regards to prisons, these bills include the notorious 3 strikes law that mandates 25 years to life sentences for those committing a third offense, even for minor drug possessions, some serious fucking bullshit, and truth in sentencing. And that's what Brian was talking about earlier, where you're required to fill up or to serve up to 85% of the sentence. And that requires that people serve all of their time with no chance of parole. So, and of course, another one of them that they were really famous for promoting was, of course, as I said earlier, SB 1070 in Arizona. So,
well, and all of those things end up making certain companies a shitload more money.
A ton of money, yeah.
And so, I kind of went off on a tangent because I was like, if I was sentenced to more than 2 years, I'd prefer him to kill me. But I said, I think that they abolished the death penalty, not for moral reasons, but because it was for the money. So think about it. In prison, because of, well, and again, not always, because you've got a possibility of being shivved or whatever, but generally speaking, an average inmate is going to live 15 years longer than somebody on the outside. Because once they reach a certain age, they can't do the work, whatever. So if you're making whatever the amount is, $249 per day,
Whatever.
100,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But there are all of these companies. Again, you mentioned Aramark, probably Cisco Foods,
Mm-hmm.
Pharmaceutical companies, because they've got to give them medicines for
yeah,
whatever.
That was something they brought up in the 13th.
They also have contracts with hospitals
Mm-hmm.
in the region because they don't have the facilities for certain tests. They can't test for cancer or even treat cancer, so they've got to send them to hospitals.
Clothing, because of uniforms. There's, I mean, yeah, it goes, dude. It goes, yeah, like the furniture. You know, them having their beds, their shitty beds, but they still have to have them.
So if you don't kill those guys, how much more money are you going to make?
Well, that's and we all know. I mean, I'm not going to say we all know, but the more that I looked at this, the more it became clear that, like you're saying, like these people are looked at as a financial upside, as a way to.
Yeah, we have monetized people in a way that we've never. Well, no, I can't say we've never monetized people because there was the slave trade.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but this is a unique expression of it. This is not something that like slavery is pretty straightforward. This is something where when you at first blush, you're not going to say this is about money. Like you said, this is about
rehabilitation.
Yes, that's the original idea. And people think prisons, and they think people are gonna crime is gonna go down and people are gonna grow. Well, I mean, one thing that is demonstrated is with the rise of the prisons, because we have so many more prisons now than we had, before '94. There's so many more prisoners than we did during that time period. If there's one thing that is clear that we can demonstrate, and I don't even have the numbers, but I think it's pretty obvious right to the eye, it's that there's no correlation between prison and lowering crime rates.
No, and that okay. So in the first part of the episode, I talked about that girl in Connecticut that lost the house
mm-hmm.
that she had inherited.
Mm-hmm.
She was in for 2.5 years for some sort of drug beef, possession and distribution or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, clearly she didn't have any other skills, and she needed to put food on the table for herself and whomever else. I don't know if she had kids or what. If you need to eat and you need a roof over your head, and the only thing that you can do because you have no formal training or whatever is sell drugs, then the fear of jail is not going to stop you from selling drugs. It's not going to stop you from shoplifting. It might not stop you from fucking armed robbery or, mugging somebody.
It's not a disincentive because survival is paramount, and you're going to do what's necessary for you to survive at that point.
Right. So, I don't know. I still say we get rid of the fucking drug laws. They're bullshit.
So this is a good quote when you're talking about what a human becomes reduced to in this moment, right? So this is based on a write-up that was written actually right after, it was written in '97, right after the crime bill started to kind of catch fire with regards to practical applications, right? And it was written by a lady who was one of the ladies was inside for 16 years. I think that was Linda Evans, but Linda Evans and Eve Goldberg wrote this thing called "The Prison Industrial Complex and the Global Economy." Excuse me. And they said at the end of it, like any industry, the prison economy needs raw materials. In this case, the raw materials are prisoners. The prison industrial complex can grow only if more and more people are incarcerated, even if crime rates drop. 3 strikes and mandatory minimums are 2 examples of the legal superstructure quickly being. Sorry.
That's all right.
Being put into place to guarantee that the prison population will grow and grow and grow. You need your raw materials. You need human beings. So again, if the intention is to help people to grow, to give them a look at a future that might, excite them to try to be better people, um, that is a fantasy reality that is not anywhere connected to the one that we're existing in right now.
No, it's fucking horrible, dude.
Mhm.
And I know. So I call myself a realist. Most people that I talk to say I'm a pessimist. I know in general I'm not an optimist. I think I try to be, but I would really like to think that, you know, okay, instead of spending 12% on military and 11% on education, let's spend 15% on education and less than 12 on the military. Um, let's get rid of the drug laws and put people away that are actually fucking dangerous. You know, let's give cops a chance to actually do their fucking jobs. They're not in the military, so they shouldn't be in a war.
But that kid down in Memphis, that's the outgrowth of a structural
It
situation
absolutely
where,
is.
yeah, the police have become militarized and they think it's their responsibility to go into places. And as bad as George Floyd was, this might have been fucking worse, dude.
I still keep trying to think, and I'm not making excuses for the Memphis police
Hmm.
at all,
Hmm.
but I keep wondering because from what I read, and I didn't see any video of it, but from what I read, they started beating him and he got up and ran away. And so they chased him and beat the fuck out of him even more. And I'm wondering if he hadn't run away, if it would have been worse, or if it was worse because he had run away. Because once that adrenaline starts, and again, I'm just talking about a fight at this point,
Hmm.
not a fight between a cop and an innocent. But once that adrenaline starts, you can't really stop. And the point that he jets, he's now become the prey. They are teeth gnashing. We're on him.
They're the Scorpion Unit, isn't that what they called them?
Oh, I don't know.
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's what they got. They disbanded it. I think that was what it was called. Was
Oh, so
Scorpion
it's
Unit.
another one of those bullshit fucking cop things where they say they disbanded it, but they just changed their name. We're not the Scorpion Unit anymore. We're now the beat the fuck out of poor people and black kids.
Tyree Nichols, is that how you say his
Yeah,
first name?
yeah. So again, I don't know, but so the police are not supposed to be in a war on drugs, and they're not the military, so they're not supposed to be soldiers. They are there to protect and serve. Again, we're the taxpayer. They're our fucking employee.
But like I I agree with you. But like if we're ever going to get back into a space where this even makes sense, you have to dismantle this. And now, like you're not talking about just dismantling the political economy of this country. We're now we're kicking fucking $100 billion into a fucking war on the other side of the now. The trying to send planes. Sending fucking. I mean, like dudes come out and said, guys, if you continue to go this direction, I will do what I have to do. This is not me making an apology for Putin. I feel like an idiot for even saying that because it's bullshit that anybody would even say. Because, like you said, uh, am I being a realist? Am I being a pessimist? You keep doing shit. You keep poking the fucking tiger. Eventually, the tiger is going to do what it needs to do.
Isn't Russia a bear?
You keep poking the bear, which is a better because that's actually a term. You keep poking the bear.
Well, no, I thought that Russia was a
It
bear,
is a
though.
bear, yeah. It works, but it does work better for both reasons because then you got the double entendre. I just am not quick enough to see the tiger and the bear. I should have gone with the bear. You're right.
The Philippines are a tiger, I
Well, so are
think.
they going to do Muay Thai with you a little bit? The Muay Tiger? Oh, that's Thailand, right? I like Muay Thai.
So
I'd
once
love to knee
again,
somebody
we
in the
have
face.
gone down.
Well, I mean, your point about the police, I don't want to dig on it in any like in because of course you're right, but like working at the post office, there's one thing that I genuinely understand is that people don't understand any concept of a civil society anymore. They don't understand the concept of citizenship. I mean, they are consumers, and I am providing them with a service that they're paying me for. I do not work for the federal government in any way, shape, or form as far as the general. So I think that when people look at police, they look at them in the same way, and they might say, "I pay taxes. I'm your boss," but
No, I get that, but I guess again, so the military is there to defend or go to war. I know I'm talking semantics and,
no, it's
and
okay.
whatever, but
we're having a good thing because we have two sides. We have, like you said, like defend, go to war. Police,
serve and protect.
right?
And so that means if somebody has broken into my house, they go and investigate and try to find out who did it. But
and then
right
you would
now,
send the person that did it to jail, and hopefully they could learn and be rehabilitated.
Right, and then come out and be
productive members of society.
Yes.
But the point is that military is no longer for defending or protecting. Police are not there to serve and protect, and prisons are certainly not there to rehabilitate. They're there to traumatize the fuck out of people, to make tons of money out of them, to turn them into a person that can't be a productive member of society, because if they keep coming back in, that means that all the people that have financial ties to that prison system can keep making money out of them, whether they make money out of what it is that they're selling to the prison system, or they're having be produced for we'll say like pesos on the dollar, because I need a smaller currency,
to do the conversion in your head.
Seriously, like it can't even be pennies, because like that doesn't even make sense mathematically.
Well, no, I mean, but seriously, we're fucked, and our police are overworked, and the main reason that they're overworked is because of this bullshit war on drugs.
Well, and austerity. I mean,
that's part of it.
Yeah.
Certain jurisdictions not hiring enough people,
and not having the money to hire enough people.
Well, again, so now we're okay. So then you could say, well, if the neighborhood was safer, more people would move there, increase the tax base, they could hire more people. Yeah. I know. We're talking finance, taxes, all of that bullshit. I don't want to go down that road. All I'm saying is that one of the reasons, not the only reason, that police are overworked is because instead of
being concerned with real crimes, they're having to chase people.
They're busting people with a dime bag or a fucking
a quarter gram of coke.
Yeah,
I mean, a quarter gram of coke isn't going to kill anybody, and I'm not telling anybody to go do coke, but it's not going to kill anybody.
Fuck it, go do coke. Do as much coke as you want, just don't get caught.
If at some point in time any of the stupid shit that we say catches on, they're gonna come back and they're gonna like have these moments where they like soundbite like the stupid shit that comes out of your mouth and the stupid shit that comes out of my mouth, and that'll be one of them, Brian. Well, do as much coke as you want, just don't get caught.
Seriously, I mean, we're all fucking grown-ups. Who the fuck are they to tell us what we can or cannot do? I mean, it's one thing if I try to fucking sell whatever to some 12-year-old.
Fentanyl. Yeah.
That's one thing. But if I am selling it to another adult or giving it to that adult, it doesn't matter if he dies or not. He did it of his own volition, or her.
Or non-binary.
Right.
Them. They.
So I just looked it up again, and I know that I said it on the previous episode on prisons, but 45%, and this is federal level only because it was a quick stat I could pull, but 45% of the federal prison population is there on drug offenses. That is a total of 66,736 people. So even if we're not talking about regular cops, we're talking about the FBI or I don't know, who's another fucking, because the other one I was going to say was the DEA, but they're definitely on drugs or on stopping drugs and probably on drugs. The ATF. So now the FBI and the ATF have the ability to go out and focus on shit that actually matters instead of drugs. But whatever.
And we'll get that is something we'll talk about a ton more next week because that's when we're going to get into the concept of the drug war. So
the nearest next number is weapons, explosives, and arson, which probably are the ATF, and it's 21.6%.
That's a good. That's a big number. I mean, and weapons, of course, make sense, but
I mean, still, you more than double that with drug offenses. Yeah. So
these motherfuckers got to make money. Money makes the world go round.
Well, and that's really what it is. I mean, I'm not even talking about the legal money. I'm talking about the weird slush fund money, CIA shit. Oh, well, we'll help get your fucking coke over the border as long as you give us 10% of, the worth. And then I also need you to help find some guns that I can ship into Canada. And the CIA is not trying to ship guns to Canada. At least I don't think they would. So yeah, if we could get rid of the drug thing, I think that would take a huge stress off of prisons and police. But they don't want that.
The Royal Day.
Right.
What do you think about the migrant populations? What about the way that they are being utilized in this context?
Well, dude, I kind of said a little bit about it, but I personally think it's bullshit because we're holding them here without any trial. We're holding them here without deportation in a lot of cases. And it used to be that when somebody came over illegally, we tried to figure out why they were here, whether or not they were a criminal, and then we more than likely shipped them back to wherever they were from, whether it was Chile or Guatemala, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, El Salvador.
Uruguay.
Right.
Uruguay.
We sent them back. But now we just fucking store them here. And again, it's because, the federal government bragged about how they got rid of privatized prisons because they didn't want to monetize people. But Biden said, no, we're not getting rid of all of the private prisons. We're just getting rid of the ones that house Americans. The ones for ICE and border and customs control are still going to be privatized.
A nice statistic for you here, just right up that alley. In the United States, the Department of Homeland Security issued more than 344,000 contracts for border and immigration control services worth $80.5 billion between 2006 and 2018. That's just the contracts,
So that's what that means, I'm guessing. Because does it go into any detail?
There's a little bit more talk to it because they go this after that they talk about like Donald Trump in 2016. the idea. So the border security. One thing that they say is the border security was set to double between 2011 and 2023, and that was before they knew that Trump was going to come into office and make that comment about building the wall and doing all that kind of shit. But it was supposed to go from 305 billion to 740 billion. But let's see. This is all just talking about
Well,
stock
no,
prices.
so what I was going to say, though, is that money that they're talking about in those bids aren't for prisons as much as they are probably for drones and like underground, like what did they? Is it underground radar?
Yeah.
Where they plant those, what's essentially a fucking motion detector. So if the ground shakes,
Then
it'll give it
in a very specific location.
Yeah, and so that way they can just capture these people and put them into the privatized prisons, but they're not. Again, I don't think they're trying to stop them anymore. Because otherwise they wouldn't need to continue building more ICE prisons. And I don't mean a prison made of ice. I mean immigration and customs enforcement.
Here's this in the context of that underground thing the underground wall, like so the government claims a 100-mile wide constitutional suspension zone inside the entire U.S. border in the name of immigration control, including the coasts encompassing some 200 million people. In this zone, the state claims the power to set up checkpoints to determine anyone's status, to conduct stop and search at will, and to seize and copy laptops and cell phones. So, I mean, it's one thing to have that little line there, but they're literally, I mean, it's like we do whatever. What did it say again? A constitutional suspension zone. That doesn't mean it's bouncing.
Right.
See, a constitutional trampoline.
The only reason that they would want to seize laptops and cell phones is obviously for information, but what kind of information are they going to get from just some fucking illegal who's coming over here to work a farm to try to make enough money to maybe send his family up here, or to go down there and buy a fucking cab or whatever?
Well, obviously they're a threat to national security, and
right?
They want to stab my family and kill them because they're all criminals. Isn't that what Trump said? Isn't that the stupid shit that was coming out of those idiots' mouths?
So again, I think that it has to do, and I know that I'm a fucking nut job for sure, but I mean, if they're grabbing this and trying to get intelligence, they want to find out who the mules are. They want to find out what routes they're taking, who they're talking to,
and not even necessarily so they can stop them, but so that they can manage the movement of these things.
Or to go back and talk to whoever's managing them and say, hey, look, we got 2 of your mules. We've got them, and we'd be glad to let them go, but we need to work something out for the future.
You need to do some things for me.
Yeah.
I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine.
Right.
But you need to understand who's in control.
But again, I mean, because I can't imagine what kind of fucking intelligence they're going to get off. I mean,
maybe that's how
do most of these people even have fucking cell phones?
Maybe that's how they found Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah, of course, everybody's got a cell phone, dude. Everybody's got a cell phone.
Dude, I don't think that's true. I don't even think everybody here in the United States has a fucking cell phone.
Most people have a cell phone. Zosimo has a cell phone.
But Zosimo went back and bought a cab in Mexico.
Okay, that's fine. But when he was coming back and forth, he had a cell phone.
And he also had a lot of fucking disposable income. And it wasn't because he was doing anything illegal other than working here. It was because he fucking lived 19 to an apartment. And they all paid $10 a piece or whatever it worked out to.
What did he do when he worked?
He did a bunch of shit, mostly fast food, I think. Construction.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I like.
He didn't do any of the farm type stuff. Yeah. I think maybe at one time he had. But since he was in the city, the farm stuff was too far out.
When I worked for my brother on the military base up in Wyoming, there was a guy, and I think he told them, I can get you some other guys if, and they're like, it's a military base. They can't come on a military base. Sorry, but he had a whole crew that was
Dude, they
ready to
used to,
go.
I mean, before they did all of this shit with I-25 and I-70, there used to be huge fucking, and maybe at one time they were for white farm workers. I don't think so because we're in Colorado, but I mean, you could see rows of houses that were farm worker houses. I mean, they weren't big and nice. They were in the middle of the fucking field to where they could just wake up and go start picking.
Like a shanty, yeah.
And now most of them are gone because most of the farmland right around the Denver metro area is gone. But you could see them everywhere.
Well, my dad on the ranch, he would hire mostly he'd hire indigenous, but to come work the cattle and the sheep.
Oh, okay.
But I bet diamonds to dollars that some.
Where the fuck would he have found a Kiowa?
I have no fucking. But I mean that's what he told me. He said that, and then we don't want to get into this too heavy, but he went and after doing that, he thought about going and starting a day labor place. All right, and he opened a day labor place, and he got into a fight with one of the guys, and I think that my dad kind of saw the reality of it, and he closed it and walked away from it, which is just fucking weird to think about it. Like, if the blood of the father, or what are the sins of the father, I wonder if like maybe that's why I'm so politically crazy, is because of all these horrible things that my family did before me.
There's no fucking reservations out there.
I mean,
I'm just trying to think, and I was doing it out loud, and I apologize to you and you.
And they were hardworking motherfuckers, but they were generally speaking all struggled with the sauce, so they'd work for a little while and they get some money, and then they'd come back and then sort of recycle that experience over and over and over again. So
yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the Native American and their troubles with alcoholism,
or farm workers for that matter.
No, we're going to move on and go back to the prison industrial complex now. So where do you want to go from here? I mean, because we've done some fucking nasty shit to prisoners, and it wasn't just.
Well, that's why I was so
in the past.
You were talking earlier about the these tests they'd run, like weird ass. So like, give me some hairy examples.
Okay, so in the 40s in New York, they injected cancer cells into people, actually Jewish people, which they were compared to the Nazis at that point. In a prison in Pennsylvania, they were testing, I don't know for who or for what company, but they were testing like this bubble bath shit, and it fucking ate this dude's skin off of his back. He was like, oh my God, I'm on fire. And he did it for enough money to buy cigarettes. And most of these tests, because they were voluntary, were for an amount equivalent to buy cigarettes for a couple of months or, whatever.
Can we go back to, so you said they were in, you said they injected did you say they injected them into Jewish people's balls?
No. I didn't mention balls, weirdo.
Okay. Oh, I thought you told me before that
that was radiation. Into people's balls.
So were they Jewish people in jail? Are you saying, or what?
In New York.
Yeah. They were using Jewish prisoners during the 40s. Cancer,
but they were about to die, so they figured it didn't matter.
That's still a pretty bad look for that time period.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bad look for any time period, but if you're doing it in the early 40s, you're definitely, that's just not a very good look.
No, the radiation into prisoners' balls was done in the states of Washington and Oregon, and I don't know for sure when it started, maybe 64, 65, and it ended in 73 in one of the states and 70 in the other.
That late? So when they got the radiation poisoning, did they lose the hair on their balls first? But that's how I deal with this shit. I don't know what to tell you.
Again, how? Okay, so and here's where kind of they're all in it together, all of them. Even though it's fucking honeycombed and some of them don't know what the others are doing. The one with the fucking radiation into prisoners' balls was a fucking study sponsored by the Department of Atomic Energy. And then I guess you could call it a co-sponsorship but later on the Department of Energy jumped on and then NASA jumped on because they wanted to know how radiation would affect astronauts' balls.
Trust your government, everybody. Trust your government.
But so back then, I think it was the 30s, they injected a bunch of Guatemalan prisoners with syphilis.
That's something they've done more than a couple times.
Well, but the reason this one came to light was because Barack Obama fucking apologized to the Guatemalan people about our mistreatment of them, which is fucking stupid. I mean, well, 70 years later, 60 years later, he's like, we're sorry for injecting your people with,
you're gonna do it,
with syphilis.
We're sorry. It sounds like you're preaching, you know.
Sorry. But I mean, syphilis was one of them. There was another one where they fucking starved prisoners because they were trying to fucking, I can't remember the name of the disease. Pagella, something, but they couldn't figure out how people were getting this disease, and it was fucking deadly. So they were starving these people and not feeding them quite enough and moving rations around and shit.
To see if they could affect fighting the disease depending on what they were.
Right. And they did it with
did
gonorrhea.
Did they get the disease naturally, or did they give the disease to the people?
No, I think, again, so I'm not a virologist, or I don't think it was a virus at all. I think it was something that broke down in your body, kind of like scurvy. You know, lack of vitamin C.
Yeah, let me just give you a lemon.
So, it was just lack of nutrition. Maybe that's what all the fucking Ethiopians in the 80s had for the Save the Children thing. I don't know, dude.
All right, so
I wasn't trying to be sarcastic. I'm just telling you that they were starving these guys, trying to make them fucking sick. They did shit like that, and it was all sponsored by some fucking pharmaceutical or chemical company or parts of our government.
Yeah. That's why I brought the Alex stuff up, because that, at least, and that's of course only one example, but there is allegedly, if you want to understand these connections to where when Brian says them, they, so it's not just like that. You can see like other. William Robinson's always a good guy to look at too, but there's a group called commoncause.org, and their goal is to fight against ALEC. And then so there are places where you can look and sort of start to find ways to map out these spaces, because honestly, if we say they and them too much, then we just sound like a bunch of fucking conspiracy theorists.
Well, and I mean, I am that, but there's nothing wrong with the fucking theory.
I just want, I like connected dots,
So, the military, because they wanted to know the effects of gonorrhea, wanted a test bed, so they used prisoners and tested gonorrhea on them. Malaria was another one. So it really is they at that point. I mean, there's a direct tie from the military industrial complex to the prison industrial complex.
Well, I just don't, like, if you use they in that context, I think it's not like using they in the non-binary context.
No, it's definitely not. They and them are totally different.
But having said that, I still think it's like I don't know. I just think that they because it isn't. It's I just like to see.
I generally try to qualify my pronouns.
Yeah, and you're talking specifically about like the military was doing tests on these ones specifically. In that case, like you said, NASA. You know, if we're going to shoot you up into space, if we're going to turn you into Major Tom, you know.
How is radiation going to affect our astronauts' balls? I got an idea. Let's find a test bed of prisoners that'll do it for smokes. Solid. Washington and Oregon. Bunch of them.
And if they just say yes, doesn't that tell you
and
how
it was
shitty
just
their
like
life is?
It was like 160 some people that fucking just volunteered. Yeah, radiation, no big deal. Apparently they had never heard of fucking Nagasaki, Hiroshima.
I'm not certain that like just it was something that I don't know. I mean, I was born in '76. I don't really recall a lot from that time period, but I'm not sure how much people talked about the deeper concepts of. I'm not sure if radiation was something that people talked about a lot.
Well, they had X-rays back then.
Did they even? I mean, like doctors knew that X-rays had radiation because
right.
That's the point.
But I think, and maybe I'm wrong because I never got an X-ray back then, but I know every X-ray I've gotten since, they give you that fucking big fucking metal thing to cover your balls because they're worried about
stuff, yeah.
Which always fucked me up. I'm like, look, I value my balls, but can't you put something over my head too?
We'll give you a tinfoil hat.
And they always say, well, don't worry, your skull protects your brain.
You're kind of thick-headed.
Historically, I don't think so. I've fallen a bunch. So yeah, I mean, we do some nasty shit, and I wouldn't doubt that we're still doing it. So the National Institute of Health wanted to do a study on sodium intake. People with high blood pressure could get 1,500 milligrams a day. People with regular blood pressure could get like 2,700. And they were going to test it on prisoners. Somebody got all riled up and said, no, you can't do it. Because apparently now there's 4 rules that say you can test on prisoners if it directly involves the prison population, if it directly involves that prisoner, or if it's for the good of them. And I know I'm missing the 4th one, but the good of them is the one that's sort of fucking vague and kind of leaves it open to whatever. Because, you know, the radiation with the balls or the fucking gonorrhea or whatever, they can say, well, this is for the good of them. We are them. All of us are them. We're just not in prison. So let's go ahead and inject this shit into them.
It's always curious. Like Pfizer coming to you, like making this altruistic, appeal to, saving humanity. It's just while they're, getting $2 billion a year in R&D, from us.
Well, and I don't know if ALEC is involved or not, or Pfizer or who all is involved, but there are legislators trying to reverse those 4 rules to make a different set of rules so that they're wider, and I'm guessing it's so that they can go back in and start doing new worse testing on them.
Doing it on rats isn't going to help you in this instance. So you got to do them on a disposable human population.
But dude, just consider it. I mean, say you're in for 20 years, you're paying $249 a day, you're making 13 cents an hour. And You're right. You don't have as many cigarettes as you'd like. You don't have as many cup of noodles. Whatever. Kool-Aid. I don't know what the fuck you buy when you're in prison. Nail clippers.
You can actually buy a pad, like an iPad now, for $125, and you can download movies for $8, which means that if you're making 12 cents an hour, that only takes you, what is that, 8 times 64 hours to get an $8 movie?
It only takes you 2 weeks to get a movie. That's nice.
So,
yeah. So I mean, seriously, like, I think, especially if somebody just came to you and said, "Look, you could be in the placebo group. We're not necessarily going to inject gonorrhea directly into your fucking body."
If you start to itch, you're gonna know. You're gonna know. But roll the dice. Why not?
But
50-50 shot.
Figure it this way: you can buy 2 packs of smokes. And the smokes thing isn't good anymore because they don't allow smoking in any prison.
That is indeed new. They do not have it in commissary. That is correct.
Yeah, you can't do that. But they do dry spinach out in the windowsill and smoke other things. So
when they get cigarettes anyway,
yeah,
just get them for different. Yeah,
those are almost as expensive as drugs.
Isn't that crazy?
Fucking whacked.
If I was in prison, I think I'd start smoking again, but I'd want to be able to roll my own cigarettes.
Yeah.
That would be a premium.
Well, you could be the spinach windowsill drying guy and then roll your own.
I don't want smoked spinach.
It smells like shit, dude.
Smoked
like
spinach?
Literal shit.
When did you smell? So when you were on the inside?
In Arapahoe County.
That somebody was smoking spinach?
Yeah, fucking some NSM gangbanger. He's like, dude, keep a look out the door. I was like, why? And he goes, hold on. And I looked up in the windowsill and he's like, look, I got this spinach. And he rolled it up and lit it. And I was like, dude, that fucking smells like shit. And he's like, you want some? And I was like, no, I just told you it fucking smells like shit. But he... So yeah, I've been there with the spinach thing.
So if they smoke spinach, does that help them shit better? I mean, is that good for the greenage?
The fiber?
Yeah.
Does that help you not get pellagra or whatever the fuck it was? I don't know. Yeah, so I honestly can say that I do not believe that any prison right now, whether it be federal or state, is built for rehabilitation. And whether it be public or private, for that matter. Because they have them both. And I think that that's what we should aspire to. Especially for all of these people that just live in constant fucking fear, where they're afraid to, come in contact with anybody because they're worried that they might get mugged or raped or whatever. Maybe if we had a better educated, better paid, better living situated people, then not everybody would be scared all the time. Or maybe that fear is just bred into us. I don't know. I mean, I never could understand it why women clutch their purses when, I'm not even saying black people, when I walk by, they do it. And I'm fucking 50. So
you're not 50 yet, dude.
Pretty fucking close. So maybe fear is just bred into us because it's on TV, it's on the radio, it's on C-SPAN. Our politicians are always talking about fear. Fear, 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 fear. Fear, 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 fear. For the Russians.
You build walls, it sells, you know?
Yeah.
I can't remember what this kid's name was, but in that movie, did you watch 13th at all?
I started watching it and then I turned it off, mainly because, dude, I'm sorry. I know I've said it to you a bunch of times. I'm fucking tired of it. I've got soul. I have been beaten by the police more than the black people that I've known. It's not just black people. And when they present it that way right at the fucking opening, I had to turn it off.
It's unfortunate. It's worth watching because I mean it's about the 13th Amendment not being a thing that liberates. But there was either way. They talk about this kid who gets falsely accused, and he ends up going to Rikers Island. And Rikers Island is notorious for keeping you there without charging you, keeping you not holding space.
New York is
brutal.
Period, yeah.
But I read and hear horrible stories about that one specifically. At the beginning of COVID, there was all kinds of shit that was happening where they were keeping people like all on top of each other, and people were fucking. There was some death that happened as a result of that. But the kid ended up proving that after he spent like 4 years inside, that whatever it was they were trying to accuse him of was bullshit, you know. And the way that he fought it, and demonstrated that it was all bullshit. There it is. Khalif Browder was the kid. After he gets out, though, like there's a sort of positive message that he shows, and then he fucking kills himself at 22. And the reason why he kills himself,
I've heard about that kid,
is because of it's exactly because of what you said. I mean, the trauma of what happens while you're on the inside, and the way that you have to. He was a smart kid. He was, you know, he was
supposed to be going to school.
Yeah.
He had like a scholarship or some shit, right?
Yeah, and he just got fucked royale with cheese, dude.
Yeah.
So, like, the trauma side of things, the ways in which, like, if there was ever a moment in the history of this country, which I don't ever believe there really was, we had a great idea at some point in time of what we were aiming for. But holy shit, we fucking missed the mark in every way possible.
Well, and you know, if we think about it, I mean, dude, I love the fucking idea of the Bill of Rights. I love the idea of the fucking Constitution for the most part. You know, I don't think that anybody is 3/5 a man.
Yeah, that there are some clear things that need to be removed. Or improved upon all the way.
Right.
Like the concept of everything must be universalized in terms of citizenship and who's participating. So who's included.
But the more I think about it, the more I think that this is what our forefathers wanted. And the only reason that I say that is because I think I've become skeptical in my old age, and that all of those guys were rich aristocrats. All of them. And they were educated in not just reading and writing, but in finance and diplomacy and
Dude, Ben Franklin came up with fucking insurance, for fuck's sake.
Right. So our forefathers, while not admitting it, I think they fucking understood that there would always be an upper crust, and that certain portions of the population were going to be said upper crust, and then everybody else was just the filling of the pie.
I think when you look at the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist papers, and you see the discussions on tyranny of the masses, I think it's pretty clear that what you just said is a fact. Yeah, they definitely thought that there were people who should be governing, and then there are people who should be governed, straight governed.
Well, no, and I think that. I mean, you can fucking walk down the street and realize that. But that isn't a socioeconomic thing, or, well, it is a smart, stupid thing, but it's not a rich, poor thing. And I think that they just assume that because they have money, they're entitled to certain benefits that others are not.
It translated to a certain kind of concept of meaning that demonstrated what you just said.
Right. And so there are people that should govern and people that should be governed. George Bush, either one of them for that matter, but definitely the second one, was more of a governed, right?
He got appointed to the CIA on the day I was born. The CIA.
No, that was the first one.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah, got it.
Yeah,
but I mean, I just always think, like, Janae always pokes me with that one. He became head of the CIA the day you're born. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Fuck you, Janae.
Well, it tells you that he was fucking with all kinds of shit at least 10 years before.
Right, and like, dude, really, like, Ford was when everything got really fucking weird. So the changes that happened in '75 to the CIA, Bush Senior was.
Yeah, he was there.
He was the one. Yeah, he was like, oh, that's a really good idea. We need to kill all those Indonesians, you know. East Timor, fuck them.
So but you mentioned Ben Franklin, and we talked about it in the prisons episode. I mean, he started Eastern State. He was basically the guy that came up with the Supermax. Don't fucking talk. Everybody's separate, even though they didn't always keep them separate. At like lunchtime, they chained them together and made them walk around, but they had them like fucking blindfolded and had weird earphones on them.
Eastern State? What the fuck are you talking about, Willis?
Ben Franklin from fucking Pennsylvania.
I don't know what I heard the part about Ben Franklin.
Eastern State. It was the prison. I
had no idea what that was. You're talking to me like I know everything that you're talking about.
Well, we had talked about it before, so I thought you'd remember.
They with this and that, with their eyes covered and blah,
anyway,
blah, blah.
He was the guy that came up with the fucking Supermax for the most part.
So this was a high security prison in the Eastern State was.
Yes, okay. And they finally closed it down, I think, late 90s. Now you can go and do fucking tours of it.
Yoga.
Like haunted prison tours or whatever. But he kind of founded that prison. Again, I'm not sure he had the best intentions for the people within the state of Pennsylvania based on that.
Based on how he constructed a prison for really, really bad criminals.
Well, again, I'm not soft on crime. I think that criminals should be.
I just was asking a question. I'm not telling you to. I mean, to be honest with you, like the original premise that we were starting from is I don't think that we even know how to be a certain way on crime because we're so afraid of it that we just basically try to fucking like remove these aspects of it and put them into these places where we extract value from them and they get them the fuck out of the way of society permanently.
Well, and again, it would be a lot easier to figure out how to deal with crime if we got rid of the ones that weren't actually crimes.
Yeah. The drug thing, obviously, I'm with you on. Like drugs are, we have to find a better way to negotiate the question of drugs.
So I don't fucking know. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of shit going on in this country. It is a battle of socioeconomic status and people with a lack of fucking education. And I'm sorry, it just is. And I know that dude in Rikers Island, and there is the anomaly every once in a while.
I'm not gonna put everybody into the same category just because of a race, dude.
No, I didn't have anything to do with race. I was just saying I know that he was smart because if it's the same guy I'm thinking of, he had like a scholarship to fucking Rutgers or NYU or something like that.
He literally was like barely 18 when it happened, and yes, he had a future that was there, that was pronounced. He was very articulate. He started when he was got out. He was talking about how it became more difficult for him because your fucking head gets fucked up, dude.
Yeah, he wasn't socialized. Yeah. So I know that there's the anomaly, but for the most part, the people that go in are or undereducated and poor.
Yeah, and we don't really know how like if we were dealing with things like in the ideal type space that we keep talking about, where you're trying to reform people, like really honestly, like rehabilitate them, like create a space where they had faith and hope, then we might know. But then you have to structure all those other things to where, like there's a space to where people are, the Star Trek concept, where people are properly educated, to where we are shooting for the stars collectively, where we're seeing who really is the best and who really, to where if your argument is, I don't hate some should be governed and some should govern, if we're dealing with things in a meritocratic way where we're really finding out what everyone's potential really is. Right. I don't have a problem with that. But I mean,
the way that things are right now is we're just fucked. The media runs everything. So if I get up, regardless of party, and I say, you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to run. But I have done drugs. I'd like to do more drugs. I do not believe in God. And I think our fucking system is broken and needs to be fixed. I have zero fucking chance of winning. Zero.
Dude. Sometimes that, like if you hit people with the truth hammer, sometimes who knows,
Only if it's a truth cartoon hammer.
Yeah, but when you're boing, grab a pussy. Vote for me. Grab a pussy. Vote for me. I'm a very smart man. It's very,
well, that's
it's
a different.
Very, very easy. Grab a pussy. Vote
he
for
has
me.
A lot of money, or at least a lot of backers, friends, associates. I don't think he has actually any friends.
Porn stars.
Yeah. Well, that goes to the grab a pussy thing.
Vote for me. Stormy Daniels. Grab a pussy. Vote for me. Who knows,
Okay, so
Yeah, this is degenerated.
Well, no. We're now over an hour again. Yeah, okay. That's all I was going to say. I didn't think that, fuck it. We go all over the place all the time.
We do, yeah.
There was nothing wrong with that. I thought the grab a pussy thing was hilarious, especially the vote for me. And we need to start doing video because it was fucking hysterical. He did a whole animated thing. It was great.
It wasn't that good, but it was kind of funny.
So, I don't know. Do you want to summarize anything other than the system's fucked?
Where we're gonna go. Like you said, the important thing that everybody needs to keep in the back of their mind, and I know I give Brian a lot of shit for the they them kind of like where he's sort of, but we are sort of outlining something that there's an interconnected space, and it has to do with capital. It has to do with people that have access to these spaces and are controlling who has access to these spaces, and are utilizing the way that the world is reproducing itself as a way of structuring people in and out, right? Like the next thing that we're going to talk about, not this further in the weekend, we're going to talk about prison
movies
in the media
or entertainment.
Entertainment with prison. So obviously we'll I'm going to talk about Shawshank because Andy's and Red are my favorite motherfuckers ever. But and Oz is a wonderfully happy thing. I got some really cool fucking science fiction prison movies that I want to bring up.
I was going to talk about No Escape.
No, dude, I only saw that once. I keep trying to find
Escape Plan.
Like I saw that at the drive-through. No Escape. That's the Ray Liotta one, right? Where they're on the island and shit. Yeah. I can't find it anywhere though. I'm trying to find it.
I've got it on my Prime.
It's on Prime?
Well, it's on my Prime because I had to buy it.
Oh my god, that's fucking funny.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about prisons, but then next we're gonna talk about the war on drugs.
Yeah, and it's important to understand, like we're saying, there's a tendency inside of these spaces So when we were talking about the military-industrial complex and we were talking about appropriations, these market spaces are dominating a thing to where the logic of the thing gets undermined by the market. Same thing with prisons. There's a market that's created, and the market undermines the logic of the thing itself. Drugs are this very fucking weird thing in our society where there's this whole culture that attaches to it in various different ways. And of course, we'll talk about what constitutes a drug, what isn't, like the way that certain things are constructed in our minds and all that kind of shit. But there is this space where when this concept called the war on drugs was created, that's where you start to see incredible problems with 3 strikes and mandatory minimums and people that are basically like, and of course, like, and how that was created, how that it was affected by like the mob. There's a lot of different things that sort of go around that.
Well, and since you talked about the mob, I mean, we're talking about prisons right now. Mm-hmm. Next week, we're going to talk about the war on drugs. So I think it's important to at least mention, and I think we're going to talk about it down the road at some point, is so gangs have always existed, but at one point, gangs were pretty much just clubs. They didn't shoot each other. I mean, every once in a while, they'd hit somebody in the head with a beer bottle or something, but it was just a club. And now they're these fucking international fucking crime syndicates because of what we made them into. So the war on drugs created more people in prison. More people in prison made gangs bigger, recruiting not only in the prison, but also out on the street. So that's how MS-13 got as big as they did. That's how the fucking... Anyway, we can talk about all that shit later.
But see,
it's all tied together.
Yeah, see these things as connected. That's what's important. And don't just take us, send us, if you don't think that what we're saying is true, send us a fucking email, send us a fucking text, ask us a question, say why, I mean, this is why it's not, and you might actually shed light on something that we didn't think of. But no matter what, it's going to be hard to break the thought that, because we're talking about the way that these markets are being constructed, and, economies tie things, these networks they tie things together. I mean, so that means 2 things. One thing is that the negative part of it comes together, and that means that the solution can only come out of that collectiveness as well. So whatever that solution may be.
All of those are good points. I was just trying to think if I had anything to add. That was the looking up part.
And that's all I got to say about that.
All right. Fuck it. This bus is coming to the end of the line.
You better say the phone number at the end of the first part too next time, because we didn't say that.
Yeah. Oh no, we didn't.
720-334-ROLL.
And shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com. Thanks.
Adios.